off, over 50 and fired. Now what? With Linda
and Shelley. Oh, it's a lovely Sunday afternoon. It's quite gusty, but we're sitting here with our nice glass of Montepulciano, and we're going to embark on our second podcast.
Right, and just as a reminder for you folks, the first podcast that Shelley and I had, we talked about the feelings that we had when we were told about our severance early retirement opportunity that we were given by our company, and how we dealt with it, how we dealt with the feelings and the emotions, and sort of how we prepared ourselves for the next steps. And speaking of next steps, I want this podcast to really focus on, the realization how codependent we were on our company. So if I remember, after we sort of got over the initial idea that we would be leaving the company, do you remember, Shelley, the first thing that you panicked about?
Yes, my iPhone. I was panicking about the fact that everybody and anybody knew me from my work number. That was the only way to get through to me, and I was panicking about what was I going to do without my number.
Right. And what did I tell you?
To be patient. For what? To figure out, what was going to happen from a work perspective, try to get some answers around the phones and stuff. But what did I do?
You did not. You panicked yet again, waking up early in the morning and immediately putting your little finger on the Amazon buy button.
That's right. Yep. Buy now. Buy with one click buying. And before you knew it, I had my new iPhone coming in my way, and I did not wait to get answers because I'm a product of instant gratification. I was panicking, and I wanted to make sure that I was going to have, the right phone that I was going to need to be able to communicate with the world.
And then what we did do is we found out what the policies were and talked to some of the people in the organization and found out that we could transfer over our number, that we could, since we didn't have newer versions of the phones, that we could keep them if we wanted to, or just migrate to new stuff. So make sure that one big learning for us is don't do anything rash right away. Take a step back, take a breather, take your finger off
the one-click buy,
and make sure you understand what the current circumstance is, and take advantage of opportunities that the company is going to give you, wherever you can.
Yep. Take a breath. Don't be like me. Don't be trigger happy where, you immediately have to go out and have instant gratification. But again, I was in panic mode, and I need to learn to take a step back and relax.
So the other thing that we both realized right away after everything settled in was that we were completely and utterly electronic dependent on our company. We had no personal laptops or computers at home at all.
Mm-hmm. Right. We had nothing. So it was like, how were we going to communicate with the outside world if everything was going to be turned in? And, so one of the things we needed to do, and we actually realized this within like 24 to 48 hours, that, oh my God, we need stuff. We need computers. So we embarked on that journey. We said the very next Saturday morning, within 48 hours, we went off to the store.
We went off to the store, but first with a very nice breakfast.
Right.
We met for breakfast.
We had a great breakfast, so we were full.
We were fueled, and we weren't going to do any panic buys.
Right.
Because we were too hungry.
That's right.
And we made sure that we brought someone along, and it just happened to be my husband, who knew something about computers, who knew a little bit that as we listened to whatever the store help was, the people at the store, that we were getting the right information, that we weren't oversold or undersold, or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So make sure that before you go in, that you understand what some of the options are, and that you have someone with you that can kind of validate your choices as you go through.
Yeah, and also, rely on the store help, because those guys, they gave us, they were great in terms of giving us some demonstrations, in terms of the different types of options that were available out there. And to Linda's point, and to mine earlier too, about not panicking, take a step back and just think about what is it that I'm going to need, to help me stay whole, and, thinking about, if I'm going to need for like a future job or whatever. How do I think about those requirements?
Yeah, Shelley, I think you're right. Really taking a step back to understand what you might be doing in the future and what kind of support, especially like tools like your computer, what does it need to do for you? what do you need to make sure it's going to have, or what flexibility it should have for things that you may want to do in the future. So for example, one of the first things that I thought of when I'm thinking about just the computer is, well, we may want to consult. We may want to talk to other companies, and when you're looking at that, a lot of them are on, a Windows operating system. So to have like a really nice Apple, which I would love from a personal perspective, may not work to help in that next step of potentially consulting and looking at other companies.
Yeah.
So it's important to just kind of step back and say, don't go crazy and overbuy. Also, don't think about it and not invest where you need to and underbuy, but look at what's going to give you the most flexibility for the potential things that you may do.
Yeah, I think flexibility is really important, and compatibility, to your point. It's just making sure that if we do more consulting or whatever, that wherever we are, that it's going to be compatible with, say, a client of ours or whatever, a project that we're working on. So that's important. And I just want to reinforce the importance of making sure that you rely on your friends and you rely on the people that, when you go in, they're pretty capable in terms of what you might need. They can help assess your needs from when you're buying the laptop. So rely on them and do some homework beforehand too. But don't panic, and think about the fact that you need to have that balance. And you don't want to overbuy, like Linda said, and you don't want to underbuy, but just really think about your needs and what your potential next steps could be.
Yeah, and again, I had to reel Shelley back in at the store because she was going to buy every accessory known to man.
And I did. I almost bought everyone. Linda didn't, but I almost did, because it just makes me happy. I like to buy things, and, I just want to make sure that I have what I need. And you know what? I'm getting better, and maybe if I don't need these things, I'll try to return them.
But the other is that try to buy the minimal thing that'll get you going, and then add on if you
That's
really
true.
do need it. That's
She's
what I
smarter.
said to her.
She's smarter.
I said, add on, wait.
Wait. It's painful for me, but I do try to do that sometimes.
Exactly. And we did actually help out one person that was in the same boat that we were in.
Yep. A friend of ours just basically, took our receipt. I said, hey, we just did it. This is what we bought. She literally took my receipt, and she went to the same store and said, this is what I want. Because she knew we did all our homework, that we're good at that, and bought the same exact thing 2 days later.
Exactly.
It's pretty funny, actually.
It was pretty funny.
Helped her out a lot.
Yeah, and she told us that we could save $100, which we didn't know
right.
about. We're helping each other out here in this. And I think as we started stepping back a bit, and we're like, phones, computers, transition actions, HR, different things that are going on, it was beginning to become like all jumbled in my head about what to do and what to do next, and what questions to ask and who to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. I was completely overwhelmed, just like you. It was great that we have had each other to bounce this stuff off of. I don't even know how I would be handling it if I didn't have a buddy, to go through this with. But you're absolutely right. It's like, how do you start to really put these things in some kind of organized fashion to help you get through and make sure nothing falls through the cracks, especially when it comes to your company?
Absolutely. So immediately I thought checklist. Let's just put the things down and, figure out everything that we have to ask. Who do we have to ask it from? And just kind of keep track of all the answers that we're getting, because it can be overwhelming between both the transitional piece from the work perspective and going through whatever procedures have to happen at work, but then also in your personal life. Like, how do you get things going on the personal side, and what you want to do for the next step of your career or your life, and what you need to do. So immediately we started putting checklists, and we're actually every day I'm going in as we're getting answers in emails or phone calls with people. We're putting it up and updating our checklist as soon as possible, so we don't lose track of that information and forget to do something important.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have it on a spreadsheet like we do. You just write it down so that you just make sure that you're covering all your bases, because it's really important. Because again, the last thing you want is to have something fall through the cracks. So it just kind of keeps you on track and kind of on a mission and more organized, and it helps get your thoughts organized, because the whole thing is really overwhelming. So how do I just make sure that I can stay focused on what needs to get done to continue to move forward.
Yeah, I thought for me, it really helped going from that sort of shock, uh, disbelief, panic in some cases, into having some more clarity, concrete steps that you can kind of go through, organize yourself, make yourself slow down and calm down and think through.
Yeah, I totally agree with it. I think the minute we started our checklist and we also started to check things off, and as I had mentioned in our first podcast, I kind of suffer from ADD. I like to go from thing to thing to thing, and I like to check things off, so checklists are good for me. But it took that panicky feeling away because we kind of laid everything out with a little more structure, for an unstructured occurrence that just happened to us.
Like even things like about how you're going to approach even telling people, like, how you're going to tell people at work. How will you do the transitions of your different projects or whatever's going on from that perspective? Even just telling people in general, because all of a sudden, one day you're not going to be there, even though you're not working on a specific project with someone. Then the other is also in your personal life. Trying to tell people when is a good time, when do you tell your friends, your family, because also you don't want to set off a panic in people who are dependent upon you.
Yep. I mean, you definitely have to be able, put that face on and say, look, guys, you know what? I'm feeling better about the situation. Linda and I, we both felt like, the checklist and everything we were doing, we were moving in the right direction. And it really does come through in how you start to communicate with your friends and family or coworkers, because they see you're calmer, that you're calm about it, and you realize, you know what, I'm going to survive this. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to be better for it. I'm going to learn from it. And don't worry about me, because I'm going to be okay.
But the other thing is also, it's difficult when you're in these personal relationships and your communications. You start to realize that when you can't tell people about your job and what's happening in your job, you start realizing how much you're linked to that job and how much it defines you.
Yeah.
So for me, as I was looking back and I was looking at my career and sort of its place within my own life, I was surprised at how much it defines me, how much it was a part of my life. And I think it was difficult at first because I was losing like a big chunk
of your identity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think we both agree that, our jobs defined us. It wasn't the only thing, but it gave us a lot of pleasure. We really felt like, we were both very passionate about our jobs. We loved doing what we were doing. We felt like we were making significant contributions, and that no longer existed. So it's like, how do you deal with, that too, that codependency and that feeling of so much self-worth that you got from your job, So that's something that we're coming to terms with now too, but that's part of the whole codependency process, right? Everything that's wrapped up. So it's not just technology that makes you codependent, right? Whether it's a laptop or a phone, but it's also how it might have defined you because you gave so much time,
I mean, for me, it was difficult because it sort of just was wrapped up in my personal life. And even my family had kind of started to be involved in that because, in my job, I had a lot of global responsibilities. And so I had people all over the world that I had to talk to. So in that kind of role, you make some compromises. Sometimes you'll do some very early morning calls to accommodate one time zone, or you'll make accommodations and you'll stay up late at night and do some calls. And even my husband got into it because, my office is in my bedroom, and sometimes he would join in some of the conversations in the middle of the night, right? As we're going through, or my daughter would know, like, oh, mom's on a call, something, I can't really bother her, or, I'll have her mute so I could say goodnight to her. Like, we all got sort of in this routine where it was like just part of like kind of the way that we lived. And so in that piece of it, breaking that apart, not having that anymore, makes you feel insecure. And then how do you get over that? I think, how do you get over the codependency? And for me, having the actions that we did, like having this idea